Hope all of you have caught up with the previous sessions. So today's session, like the main idea was we'll cover what ORMs are, some basic routes, get an idea of it, and try and implement the sign in routes quickly, and even like the authorization middleware. Okay, so before getting to it, just one thing. So just few JavaScript concepts. Uh, we have the something called element.innerHTML, right? I'm pretty sure this is something we will use a lot in our project because we have to take the markdown, convert into HTML, and that HTML should be rendered to our blog, right? So yeah, the most common straightforward approach would be to use inner HTML, right? But there is a security concern with it. Okay, so for now in this page you can see I've just created a simple form. There's a text input and a submit button, and yeah, this one it just shows your search query was, and then it takes whatever was there inside search and puts it inside this using .inner HTML. Give you an idea, and this something search and it will come up here. All right, but there is something called JavaScript injection. So I mean, you can just say alert, say hi. This wouldn't work, right? This is, you might think JavaScript injection is like directly putting in JavaScript and doing like this. Uh, but to make it work, you you have to do like put an image there, empty source attribute, and an on error function. So in here I'll put alert. I this is an example. What this basically means, right? So whenever an image tag has an empty source attribute, it gives an error, and to handle that error, it goes into the on error function over here. I put search now, you can see it comes up here. So this is in its essence what JavaScript injection is. So I can just put it, anyone who's knows enough backend knowledge, they can put some code over here, uh, and it affects the the queries in the backend as well. So to avoid that, sometimes what you want to do is instead of inner HTML, you can use the inner text or text content. So I'll type the same thing again. First normal one works same as .inner HTML. Difference being if I put in the image tag again with an empty source attribute, again, and search, you can see it directly puts it. It's not giving me error because uh, dot dot text content, it doesn't render the HTML in this case. It directly takes whatever value was inside this and just puts it over there. And so I just thought we and point this out because instead of using inner HTML, I mean use it as and when required. Okay, and you'd prefer using text content more frequently, right? This was one thing. Other one was static keyword in classes. We won't need the output here, just the console JavaScript. Okay. So if you remember classes, right? So this is something we'll be using in our project. So class user and the constructor the constructor function that takes in the entity structure over here, name and email this and password for now. This dot name equal to name. This dot email is equal to email, and this dot password is equal to password. All right. And when I want to create an instance of this class, right? That's what an object is. I'll just use the new keyword. So let's say new user, and here I'll again send an object. Application email .com and this password. There's some random stuff over there. And if I console.log, it will return me what was there inside the constructor function. So okay, it's giving me like this. Okay, maybe let's just not make it too complicated and destructured. Let's, can you guys see what is wrong? Am I doing something wrong here? This usually works. Spelling wrong. Yeah, the spelling wrong. Okay. So you can see it's giving me this user object, right? And we had learned certain methods that we can do with the instance of the class now. So one instance is like get details method. Whenever I declare a function within a class, it becomes a method that is inherited by the uh, object that I create from the class, right? So just put console.log, say over here, let's put name tactics, okay, and be contacted at this dot email. Okay, so I'll just this and just do dot get details and remove it. And yeah, you can see it here, right? Kunal Kishan can be contacted at kunal@gmail.com because that's what I did over here, right? But now comes static, right? Static methods of a class. How does it actually work, right? So to make a static method, I'll just put the static keyword and just say and maybe user, not user, add add new detail or something. Okay, this just takes in a new detail and a value. Okay, and this detail is equal to that value, something like that. All right. So now, where am I exactly using this one? Right. Whenever I declare a static method, it becomes a part of the class rather than the part of the uh, object that I create from the class. So if I try to invoke this method, add new detail, it will give me an error. It's not a function. Because this static method is a part of the class and not a part of the instance of the class. That is the object that I create from this user class. So how do I actually use it, right? So I can just do simple. Since it's a static method, I'm calling it on the class itself, right? So user add new detail. It takes into a thing, right? So let's just say uh, college knowledge, right? And it just sets out an example. Okay, and then invite console.load user again. It gives me this. So it's just showing it's no need to worry about that. So it's just showing it added the detail that I wanted over here. Is it clear why this is static? I mean, how static classes are used, static keyword is used. Any ideas about the static keyword? Because we will be using this in our project as well. Because I mean, static methods are those that are called for the constructor, I mean the class itself, rather than the object that we create from the class. That's the main uh, idea over here. This is just a, I mean, this example is not good. I mean, it's not that abstract. Doesn't give much idea of why we actually need this, right? I'll show you now why we are going to use the static methods in our project. Any doubts with this? Okay, let's just continue then. Okay, so the next one was, something that I thought we should cover: standard commenting methods in JavaScript. If you take a look at the Atom project, the backend for it, and you go to the controllers and user. So yeah, Mozilla has done a great job, putting the comments. So commenting, as you know, we usually put comments to give details about a particular function, and yeah, it's a good practice to follow a commenting standard as well, right? So in this case, you can see what does this function do, right? So it gives a, you usually put a at and then the name of the comment you're trying to express. So your add description, like create a new user, add route, for which route does this function apply to, and the access to this route, is it public or is it private, right? So all of these are like standard commenting methods. Why do we need to add them, right? The main idea being is what you might be coding this now, and yeah, you might remember how it works, right? But 3 4 months down the line, you're coming back, it will take some time to read it all over again and understand it. So instead of wasting your time reading it, you can just take a look at the comments and see quickly what it does, right? And another reason why you want to add such comments is because the way you write code, again, you can understand the way you write code, but not everyone has the same understanding, right? So comments help others also understand what you're writing. So if you're working in an open source project, adding comments is like really important so that others have idea of what you are doing as well, right? So yeah, this is what I wanted to point out about commenting. Okay. So before getting to ORMs, right, I wanted to show you uh, how it was initially planned to connect to the database and then send queries back and forth, right? So if you remember in our file, we had created a database folder in which there was a index.html. Okay, here the name is different, so we don't have to worry that much about that. So here it's mentioned, right? Use of SQLize and MySQL instead of MySQL and util. But we'll just see how MySQL and util are used to connect to our SQL database and to send queries. Okay. So first thing, obviously we need to get the MySQL library, get the util library as well, and the environment variables over here. Okay, so this is just checking is it a development environment or production environment, and it just automatically puts in the either the dev host, basically the development variable. So to create a connection with your database, first you have to use the dot create connection method that takes in an object with four keys, that is your host, your user, database password, and the name of the database over here. So host in your local environment is just your local host or 127.0.0.1. So that is your host in this case. else. Let me just show it you. Right. So in this case, it is just your local host over here. Your user in this is root, and in your local environment, you have no password. So it can just be an empty string, or you can leave it empty as well. All right. Uh, yes. And your database is your database name that you'll be using. This is another project, so it has this one. In our case, it will be mkd underscore log, like that. So let me just come to the database objects here. Okay, so yeah, same thing. I'm getting the MySQL here, and then I'm doing a dot create connection, and I'm passing in those required variables over here. Okay, so if I run this file, it will probably give me an error here because cannot find this. Detail that works. Okay. I mean, we're just getting started with the actual code right now. So this, you can even check it out in npm.js.com and search for MySQL over here. And so in this situation, same way, okay, you can just go to npm.js, and same way in the documentation also it shows how to create a connection. Next, from that connection, you have to use the dot connect method to actually create a connection to your database. So this, okay, and then next, how do you send queries, right? You use again with after connecting, you use the dot query method, and then you pass in the SQL query you want, and it takes in a callback function that has three arguments: your error, the result from the query, and other fields as well. All right. And once you're done with your query, you can end the connection with dot end method over here. This is installed. Okay. And let's run this. Yeah, this will give me an error. You can see here. Why? It's showing connect econ refused. Why? Because I have not initialized my SQL server right now. So I just started. Okay. And yeah, if I run it now there is no error. If I run it again, better than good. Okay, in this case, it's already connected, so it didn't throw me an error in the second instance. So, yeah, it's running right now. All right. So, I mean, like, to give you an example of the util, right? The next one was util in this case. I'll come back here. So, the util library, right? So, util is like a HTTP based library that allows you to, util allows you to handle uh, promises in a easier manner. Let's see yeah. So let's just see how it's used. So in this case, let's just go to MySQL again. You can see how we were sending queries, right? You use the dot query method that takes in this one, the query you want to do. That for this you have to know the SQL syntax, right? And then the callback function. that has the error results and fields. But this all seems very hectic, right? So every time I want to send a query, I have to call the dot query method, and then uh, I have to send in another callback function that to handle the results over here. I don't want to do that. It gets very, it brings back the callback hell again. I want to avoid that. So to avoid that, I'm using the util library. So I have the util library over here. What I'm doing is I'm just taking this one util that dot promisify, and then I'm sending the dot query method inside it, and I'm doing a dot bind the database connection over here itself. Okay, so what this does is it allows me to just use this send query. So this send query will have all the uh, it's basically the same thing. It takes in the string. So instead of me using a dot query, I have to just use the query method, send in this, and it will automatically return me this one. So it'll automatically return everything inside this. If there's an error, it will only return me the error. If there is no error, it will return me the results. And to give you an example, let's just come back here. I'll go to register, right? So yeah, I'm getting the connection from the database, and I'm doing the same thing util dot promisify. I'm setting in the query method over here, and I'm binding it so that I get all the results directly from that method. In here also you can see what the bind specified for a given function. That is the my query method. It creates a bound function that has the same body as the original function. Okay, same. So similarly, whatever was there in my query, it binds it to my uh, new query method over here. All right. All right, so next, right, how do I actually use this, right? So instead of using the query method and then waiting for a callback function, I can just do this. So I'm writing a query over here, that is get all the emails from the user details, and I'm just doing query, sending in the query which I just wrote, and I'm sending in this string over here. As simple as that. Alright, is there any doubt so far with like this part alone, like connecting with the database?
Yeah, yeah, got it.
Got it, right? Cool. Okay, so yeah, this is why we need. Uh, I mean, this is why we're using the util. I mean, we could have just directly sent it, but we want to avoid the callback hell as much as possible. So that's why we're using this method over here. But then there's something better. Instead of you having to write all these queries by yourself, right? So I have to, customize it every time, every single time I want to send a new one. There's something called uh, O- ORMs in this case. Just close this and I'll come here. So, okay. So, what exactly is a ORM, right? Relational mappers. It allows you to transform a relational database into objects, as simple as that. This is the main gist of ORMs, right? And the code from the ORMs can be easily implemented in our project. Okay, so main thing, you don't need to write SQL queries. You just need to use certain methods offered by these ORMs. Uh, you know, Here itself. So if you want to find a say users where zip code is equal to this, you would have to write this SQL query. But instead of you doing this, you will have a particular library, you know, that goes that has a method, that can directly get where you have to just specify what you want to get, and it will automatically write this query and it will get it for you. So yeah, it makes things much easier, and you don't have to remember the SQL query as well. Uh, and it also keeps the code organized at the same time. So in that case, you might have seen it was quite messy, keeping those queries separately, and every time if I had to make a change, I had to search for where it was, and it got complicated. Instead of that, uh, instead of us having to go through that problem, initially I had planned. I didn't know about this. I had planned that we'll create our own classes and all that. So, but this makes things a lot easier. So, to give you an example, something like this, you have a table, and you can write same thing. You can uh, write specific functions.
So it's basically just compressing our data.
Yeah, you could say that it's more of like seeing your data in an object representation.
Right, okay.
So you don't need to write those SQL queries. You can just use the methods offered by those ORMs to update your database directly.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, this also. I mean, for Python, for us, it will be JavaScript. So you can write JavaScript code. So the ORM, what will do? It will take that, convert into an SQL, and go to your database. it will get it will run the query that it converted and get us the result that, like, the result will be in form of a SQL, right? So the ORM, it will take those that SQL result and return it back to us in a form of an object. So it's easier for us, to write code and interact with our database with JavaScript itself, right?
Okay.
So in our project, we'll be using the Sequelize ORM. Okay, so what is SQLite, right? It's fine. So promise-based Node.js ORM for these databases for Postgres, MySQL, SQLite, and Microsoft SQL, right? So it has the MySQL. That's what we are looking for. So let's just go to the document. If you want to know how to use it, always go to the documentation. Okay. So first thing, we want to connect to our database, right? How do we do it? So the SQLize, it depends on a driver. In this case, it's not MySQL. It depends on the MySQL 2. So we have to say install this as well. MySQL 2, slight differences. Just search in MTS. Come over here. Okay. Yeah, so pretty much the same. Create connection dot query. Probably this MySQL 2 is a updated one. It's probably better maintained as well. So that's why they would have preferred to use this instead. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So similarly, like, let's just see how to make a connection. I'll do it over here. Wait. Equalize. Put it over here. Okay. I'll just what are the things we need later? First, I'll just do yarn and batch file. So we create a package.json. I'll just do yarn uh, add SQLize and MySQL 2. I'll just wait for okay, yep. So it's installed now. I'll just create a db.js file. I'll import const. I'll just put anyone SQLize. So let's just see how they do it. Similar, first you import the SQLize library, right? So we have this is for different ways of connecting for different databases. So the first one is for SQLite, second is for Postgres, third one is passing parameters for SQLite. But we are not looking for that. We are looking for MySQL, right? So it comes under the other dialects. So it's given how to create a connection. You need to use the new keyword, pass in your database name, your username in our case is the root, password it will be an empty string, host localhost in our case. So let's just I'll come over here. localhost. Okay, and I'll just come on this. And I'll just come in. I'll just create a test database. Okay, test is already there. Why not we just use this one itself? Okay, there's already one with the name test. Okay, so if you remember const sequelize is equal to new sequelize. First one, it takes in the database name. So our case is this test. It takes in the username, that is root, since it's your local environment.
And then
Third,
empty.
yeah, empty string, exactly. Third one is your options. So in my options, I have to pass in my host. Host is localhost. And fourth one is uh, dialect, right? Dialect, and it's MySQL. Okay. So with this, I've created a connection to my database, but I want to test it out, right? If this connection is valid or not. So for that, I'll just use a sequelize dot uh, authenticate method. I run this. Okay, file over authenticate. Okay, yeah, if this is not working, it should go on error. I'll just stop this temporarily and run this again. Yeah, it gives me an error. Right, that's what I'm looking for. Start this again, and now there's no error. Okay, so for now, what I'll do is uh, make a uh, anonymous synchronous function, right? And it's a self-calling one. Okay, so in this, I'll just pass in the sequelize dot authenticate. Okay, and then I'll just put console dot log uh, connected, and here I'll just put error dot message. It's the same. I'll just stop it right now. Stop. Disconnect. I'll run it. Okay, it's not saved. Yep. And yep. Await. So you can see connect econ refuse because right now my local server is not running. I'll start it. I'll run this again, and now it's showing connected. Okay, so these are some logging results. So whenever the great thing about SQLize and ORMs in general uh, is that you have to have a database, that's mandatory, but then you can create certain models, right? These models basically is your object representation. It will convert into table. So before converting table, it automatically checks if the table is there, then create the table. uh, I mean, if table is not there, then create a table and then insert those values like that. So to do that, right, what we have to do is we have to do something called await sequelize.sync. So this let's just have so sync all defined models to the database. As mentioned, it checks if the table is not there, then create it, right? So what am I talking about? Create what table from what, right? So in SQLize, we can do I'll create user.js. Okay. And before that, I'll export all of this. So const database is equal to sequelize and sequelize. So these are two things. One sequelize is my connection, this one, and the other sequelize is the whole library itself. I don't want to keep importing it again and again, right? And then simple export sorry, module dot exports to database. All right. So now how do I mentioned it creates database tables if it's not there, right? But created from what? So that's why the models come in, right? So models here, it is what defines, it represents a table in your database. So we are creating models that is in JavaScript format. And what Sequelize does, it takes that model, converts into a table in SQL. So let's just see how to do it, right? So we have to get Sequelize from this Sequelize library and data types, and we have to get the connection. We have to do the connection again, and then we have to use something Sequelize dot define, and then takes in the name of the table that you want to do, and what all fields. In this case, all these fields are a column. Okay, so there are two ways. Either you can use the dot define or you can use a class method. We will go with the class method over here because it's easier to define, uh, methods and those static methods as well. To give you an example, let's just come back over here. Okay, I'll show you why I'm say, exporting it in a database itself. So I'll come to user. One, two, require and over here it's just this database object, right? And this means I'm destructuring. So Sequelize, it'll automatically show up, and the Sequelize library itself. But I'm not looking for the whole library, I'm just looking for one step. Two things to be precise: the model and for data types. Okay, next, let's just take a look at documentation. Yeah, so the model and the data types. Okay, and yeah, so user, class user extends from model, and then to create my model I have to use the user dot init method over here. So let me just come back here. Okay, so class user extends model. Now you can just leave it empty, it's alright. User dot init. Okay, init, and then I pass in my fields. In this fields it will be my column name. So just say first name, and let's just go with name, similar name. It takes in the what type it is. In our case it is data types dot string. Okay, other one is the allow null is false. So this is similar to uh, you know you uh, you creating a table, and where you pass in for each column, right? uh, Not null. So similarly, and this is an in JavaScript is like false, like that. Okay, and then we can even do email. It's in the type data types dot string, allow null as false, and then we're just taking a password as well. Okay, type data types dot string again. Okay, so these data types, right? They are not that much different uh, from your SQL data types. They're just a representation of uh, those data types in SQL in JavaScript. So dot string is nothing but varchar. So if I come to here, I need to go to lies types. Okay, come here, and you can see SQL don't here basically it's just data types. So yeah, dot string means varchar by default 255 characters. You can even specify how long you want it to be. Okay, then you even have integer, big int, float. Uh, then main one being other things that we'll be using is date. Sequelize dot date is nothing but your date time as well. So all of these, right? So data type dot whatever data type I'm putting, they are nothing but your SQL data types in this case. Okay, so they are by default already there in this. Yeah, I'm not sure why this is.
Kunal, I actually have my meeting for my internship right now. Is it okay if I leave?
Yeah, sure. Just catch up with the recording later. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so now I've created my model over here. Okay, I'll just save this. I need to export it, suppose in case we need it later. User. Right. Okay. Makes sense. The after creating the model, the second thing you want to do is the second parameter of dot init. That is, you need to pass your connection instance over here, and the name of your model. Right. Your model name is nothing but your table name. So I'll come back here. All right, and I'll pass in sequelize this directory. Sequelize and model name is in user details again. Save this. Where am I getting sequelize from my database, right? So .db over there and run this again. Sequelize is not found. Why? Is not exports. Okay. This is counter. Yeah. So now it is run. So when I'm running my user.js, what it's you can see, right? It this is by default login, and you can see it even logs the queries that it sends to the database, and you can see create table if not exists. So now it will create the user details table as I've specified the model name in this case, and it if I don't specify a primary key, it automatically creates an ID and gives it an uh, auto increment and specifies it as the primary key. And other than that, it also creates two additional columns for me, created at and updated at. So we had planned, right, for user registered at and logged in. We can just rename these columns and use it as there, right? So next, yeah. So after creating my connection, I want to create a new user, right? How do I do that? So I can just do simply const again in this equals user dot build. Okay, well, that takes in all these values, right? So I have to just put in name, Kunal, email again with gmail.com, and finally my password. Just some random stuff. Okay, and console.log in this case. Right, so let's save and run. Right, it's here. It's giving me a big one. User details, dot data values, previous data values. Uh, what was changed? Is it a new record, and all that? So, yeah, it's a bit complicated reading this. Luckily, SQLize offers me a dot to JSON method on the uh, instances what I create from my user model. So whenever I'm using a dot uh, user build method, it's giving me a sequelized instance, right? So this is a object created from this user. It's similar to the constructor that we just saw. Using the new keyword, we are using on the model class, and we are getting a new object, right? So similarly, I'm just doing a user dot build. It's creating an instance of this model, and whatever values I pass into it is returning that as an object. So I don't want to see all this other values. I just want to see all of this these values, right, for this instance. So I'm just using a dot to JSON method that Sequelize offers. I'll save this, run it again, and yeah, you can see it created probably I didn't specify an ID, so uh, no issues. You don't need to worry about that. So it took the name, email, and the password over here, right? So now, why is ID null? Because that will only happen when you actually register it in SQL. So I'll go to my this one over here. Okay. So this is my test table, and you can see it created a table there by itself, right? I'll go into it, but yeah, where is my uh, okay, right? So where is my the object that I just created? So to save the object in your database, you've got to do something like uh, you have to run a method. I'll just call this one again. You have to use await. On this one, you have to call the dot save method over here. So what this dot save method does is it takes in the instance, whatever values was there inside it, and runs a insert query, just similar to what we would have done. Insert into the table name, and then we'll pass in those values, right? This, instead of us doing all of that, we just call a dot save method, okay, and just put console dot log user save, else user dot this console dot error dot message, save this and run it again. Okay. Yeah, you can see it created the ID because I'm console logging over there, and then yeah, connected, and after that user saved. So I'll come back over here and reload this, and yeah, it's here. And yeah, now the ID is that because the auto increment is only for the database itself and not for the instance. But now I'll come back here. All of these are okay, they're not unique, so I can create another one. So if I run this again, I'll run it again and come back here, and yeah, you can see it's all being saved, and yeah, the ID also works. It's auto increment in this case. So that's a great thing about Sequelize. You don't have to remember uh, the SQL queries. You can just use the methods offered by Sequelize itself, and it's all there in the documentation. So again, if I come to some model basics, model instances, that's what we are looking for, right? Yeah, so to uh, create a instance, we use a user.build. User.create is nothing but create and save it immediately. We don't want that. We want to run certain checks before that. Okay. And yeah, you even dot destroy method on the insert deletes it from the database. Uh, yeah, so there are a lot of methods over here that we can make the full use of to right. Mm, okay, so the next concept that I want to talk about is hooks in this case, right? So hooks means these, right? So this is hooks are functions which are called before or after a call and sequelize. So pretty straightforward. If I want to, there are certain functions, that call other things before a particular sequelize cycle. So suppose, say, before I do the dot save, I want to take this password and hash it, right? How would I do it? For that, I have to just come over here, oops, and just put before save, and it calls a function. That function takes in two things: the instance and some options. Okay, we'll just do arrow function over here. Okay, so what we can do is user dot password is equal to user dot password plus I'll just do a math dot random. Okay, just testing it out. Okay, so what this should do is, okay, comma, right? So what my hooks does is it looks at whatever I've specified in here. So Before save hook means it looks into uh, the dot save. Okay, let me rephrase that. What my hooks does it looks in whatever hooks are there. In this case, it's the before save hook. Before save straightforward. It calls whatever function is specified in the before save hook, and then executes those functions, and then it saves it. Okay, so I'll just simple do console.log before save. Okay, just as an example. Okay, and also after save also we have save user options. I'll just put console.log after save. Okay, that's an example. Okay, and I'll just copy this one as well. We can so that we can see what the uh, password was before and after saving it. Okay, I'll run it. Okay, so you can see the password here is this, and then it calls the hook before save, and then user saved, right? After saving, then user saved. Okay, connected. Okay, just console logging in once, not sure. But let's just take a look in our database. Okay. And yeah, you can see it's done exactly what I specified it to. In our case, we'll have to do a hash function, but this is just to show you. So it took the password, it added a math.random before saving it. So we'll be using hooks as well in our project. So we can run certain functions, and with ease we can just call the dot save without having to worry about hashing and creating avatars, image avatars, and all that. Okay, so uh, let's just get to the project. I'll come here. Okay, so this is this. I'll just close all of this. And yeah, so if you remember, this was our project. I'll go into my SRC app, and I'll go to my user. Okay, so in my user, we saw controller. We'll have a controller, we have a model, and we'll have a routes, right? So in the model, I told we'll define the user, right? Okay, so that we can ignore. Okay, so I've done the same, basically the same thing. So I'm getting SQLize, and I'm getting the database configurations. Okay, and then I'm checking is it a development environment or not. And then if it is a development environment, then destructure from my get the development variables, else get the production variables. To show to you in the config file, it's like this database, it has a production and the development. Okay, so yeah, in my database or JS. So after I've done that, I'm just passing in these variables into the connection instance. Okay, then I'm calling the authenticate connection, and then sync. Similarly, authenticate the connection, then sync with the database. Okay, and finally it console logs connected to my database. If it does not, error connecting, and then console log that error. And then similarly exporting the SQLize connection instance and the SQLize object itself. And then how am I using it in my model.js? I am importing it over here, right? Similarly, SQLize the instance, data types, model. Okay, then there's a class over here. Okay, and then the user.init to create the model. So my model, if I come over here and yeah, go to my this one, and we'll go to the database schema, and I'll just see the picture. So what normally does my user have? Full name, their username, email, bio, links, image, their hashed password, last login, and registered at. Similarly, so user ID will be my primary key in this case. I can specify with the SQLize properties itself. Here I'm passing in default value as nano ID, and this nano ID is random, right? So every time a new user is created, it will give me a default value from the nano ID itself. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about it creating about creating another user ID in a separate query. Then the full name, okay, the username, it should be unique. If there's a error, it will show this message. Similarly for email, I even have validate methods, so it checks whether if this is an email, then allow it to save. If it is not an email, then yeah, don't save it. Give me an error. I want really proper validated emails to be saved. So it handles everything for me instead of me creating my own functions to validate all of them. Then yeah, links, the default value will be an empty object, string object actually. Then bio as well. Then the image, it's a random image generated, and then the hashed password. And after that, what I'm doing, I'm passing in the connection instance the name of the table. Okay. When was the I'm renaming the created at and updated as the timestamps into registered at and login, last login. And as I mentioned, the hooks, the main part, right? The hooks, which does certain things before saving it, after saving it, and all of it. So uh, I'll come to my this one. So I've created some methods here. Generate hash password, right? So this it takes in the string password that I passed, which is the unhashed one, and hashes it and reassigns it to the same uh, property. Next, generate default avatar. It converts the full name into initials. So suppose say this my name, right, Kunal Keshan. It will just take in this. What this basically does is it takes in the name and converts into KK like that, from the first two letters of my name. So and then it it just puts it over here. What this one does is it gets a SVG of the initial. So if I just take this, come over here. Sorry. Yeah. And I'll just put KK, right? It returns me something like this. So this is what I'm looking for. Okay. And yeah, generate auth token. It returns a JWT token from about this user itself. Okay. And yeah, this we can discuss later. And another method which is authenticate user that takes in a password that will pass, and yeah, it will just return true or false based on what we want to do using the bcrypt.compare method which you've seen before. Okay. So yeah, so this is one use, not one, this is our like the first version for what we'll be using in our project. Similarly, we can have other things as well. So in the article model also, I've created this one, but I haven't used any hooks over here, right? So in the article model, we saw, right, it has relationships with the user. One user can have many articles, but each article belongs to only one user. So I can do the same thing. There's I have to on the instant on the classes that I've defined, right? This you can see it's a capital U, so it's the class. So user, and to create a relation, I have to use the has many. So this one, it takes in has many relationships to what, to the article, and the foreign key is specified over here. Similarly, article, right? Article belongs to which table, right? So it belongs to means only a one to many relation. Uh, sh- Sorry, many to one in this case, but one article can belong to only one user. So does even belong to many, something like that. Yeah, belong to many method. That means it has a many to many relationship in this case. So yeah, on delete and on update cascade that we had seen, and the name of the foreign key. So you have to make sure that these two matches. All right. Uh, yeah. This was the main idea between why we are using Sequelize. All right. So now how do I actually use it, right? So in my user controller, okay, sorry, user controller, right? So I'm getting in the model from here. Okay, you can look into this later. Okay, okay, so just a simple example. Okay, this one. it checks. It's a function that checks is my username unique, okay, and I will pass it in uh, from my request body. So to right. So if I wanted to do this with simple SQL, I had to first find use the select all from query that and pass in the username. But instead of doing that, I can just use the class that I model that I defined and use the SQLize method itself. Dot find and count all. So yeah, it will give me a count if there are no uh, method usernames that match what was passed, then it will return zero. So zero, we know on boolean it is false. If there is username that matches, it will return one, and one and any number higher than zero is true, right? So and then I'm just responding that back. So this is my controller, right? So in my controller I'm defining various functions like this: export.login user and dot get user by id, right? These are untested, we'll have to test them out, okay? So how do I assign them to a particular route, right? So I'll go to my routes js. You can see I'm getting in the user controller over here, right? So in my user controller, I'm having a routes over here. So API/API/ is email unique, and yeah, it and I'm just passing in that function over here. When I pass in like this, it automatically passes in the response object to this user controller. Okay, so these are all defined, but they are all untested. Okay, and then I'm just doing exporting it here in and taking to my index.js as a user router and router.use, and then exporting that. And to use that, uh, I'm bringing it back over here. Uh, yeah, in this one, sorry. So I'm getting the user router over here. Yeah, I know it seems a bit complicated having separate routes and separate index, right? But it keeps it clean and uh, code clean and organized. And uh, and I have to just export it over one time and come to my app. So it has the app router. As I mentioned, if it's an index file, you don't have to specify it. It will automatically look for it. And I'm just using the app router. As simple as that. So even my app file is also pretty organized. So in here also, same way, I've initialized the application with Express. I'm using the Express middlewares. Okay, and over here, some uh, error handling routes. Right, the first one is, suppose say the user puts in a request to an unknown route, right? So that is handled by this over here. If by in case there is some error in my server itself, it is like this. So if the error is defined, send that error, else it will be a server error, something like that. Okay, I'll come back to my controller. All right. Okay, so let's just see how the hooks are quite useful, right? So I'll go to my register user route controller. Okay, so in my request body, I'll be passing in everything: the name, full name, uh, username, email, and I'll put user.build. Okay, then I'll do await user.save. So as I mentioned, hooks allow you to do execute certain functions before a particular SQLized cycle, right? So if I come to my models and sequelize hooks, user hooks, right? So before save, generate a default avatar with the user initials, right? So it executes that, then hash the user password, and yeah, convert whatever object was there into a string before storing it. And in my controller, user.save. So I don't have to call additional things, right? So in my new user, I'm using the generate auth token, which I had defined over here, right, as a method for the instances, right? So generate auth token, it returns a JWT token over here. Okay, then if it is all okay, if there's no error so far, respond with the status 201. 201 means something has been created successfully. Okay, and then yeah, it and it just sends the cookie, the auth token cookie, and JSON message account registered successfully. And yeah, if there's any error, console log the error in the logs and respond with the status 400 with the error dot message. Yeah, so we still have to test this all out. I will push this all to GitHub. What you can do is, uh, you know, in your GitHub, if you go to your GitHub and to not to my MKD block, but the one that you forked, over here it will show fetch upstream. So once you do the fetch upstream, then come to your local MKD block and just do a git pull. Else, you can just do a git fetch over here as well because it's a forked repo, right? So it will pull the changes from my repo as well. Okay. So once you do that, yeah, you can use Postman or Thunder client that we had seen, to yeah, Thunder client as well, to test those routes. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I just wanted to show you the use of Sequelize and all that. Uh, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've returned the code for the sign in, sign up. That is, in our case, is a login and registered. Okay. So, similarly for the login dot also, user find one, it takes in the username and email. It depends. If we specify the username, it finds it by that. Else, it finds it by the email. If there is no user, then throw the error. Okay. Else, if error is there, then check the password. Okay. And I'm using my authenticate user method, which I had defined in the user model, and it returns a boolean, right, true or false. Okay. So it takes in if true, then do all of this. And yeah, maybe we should have done something like this. This would have been better. If check password, if it's false in this case, then throw new error, invalid password, something like this. And yeah, we wouldn't need to put these checks over here. Yeah. So it will automatically stop the execution of this function over here itself. Yeah, so these are not tested. We have to test them out. We will do them side by side. So, any more of this? Yeah. So what you guys can do? Any one of you can pick it up for the the tags table that we had defined. So you can create a model.js in the tags folder and define a similar model. You just test it out. Okay. And yeah, let me know how it works out. I hope we've covered everything for today's. Right, so yeah, ORM, SQLize. Yeah, some basic routes means in our case it is the routes. Yeah, similarly for the slash route, it just takes into the index controller and to your index page. So if I go to the controller, it just renders the index.ejs file and sends it to the front end. Right, and yeah, this one was pretty straightforward because we are using SQLize. It makes things much easier, and yeah, so we have to test them out. These routes have to be tested out using Postman or we Thunder client, and yeah, we'll work on that. All right, yes, sir. That was it for today's session. Okay, let's stop the recording.